Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I am building a journal for 2016, and I'm using my new calendar stencils. Now, these are perpetual calendars. They're never ending. They're eternal, whatever you want to call them. Basically, you're not trapped by the year. But I'm going to show you how you can make a year out of any one of these. So I'm going to be doing 2016. Even though 2016 isn't on here, I'm going to show you how to easily get 2016. Then I'm going to show you how I use these in a cardboard journal, because I have been in love with playing with cardboard lately. Well, enough of my talking. Come take a look and see how I built a journal for 2016. So I wanted to build a journal for 2016, and I started with a bunch of painted cardboard pages. You can see how I decorate and make cardboard pages like this in my free workshop called Permission to Play. I'm going to show you here how I take and turn this journal into one for 2016. So I'm going to start out by doing the cover, and I want to put 2016 on the cover, but on my stencil I don't have the years, I just have the days of the month. Not a problem. I am going to take a cosmetic sponge and cut it down really, really little, so that way I don't have to mask anything off, because I don't like messing with that. And since it's going to be 2016, I am going to just stencil the number 20. And just staying very carefully right there, so I'm just on the 20, but you know what? Even if I go a little bit over, you know that's not going to bother me. And here's what the 20 looks like, but it's 2016, not 20. So what I'm going to do is try and be patient and wait for this to dry. I might even fan it with the stencil. The less paint you use, the faster it will dry. And I used enough paint that I'm going to give it a moment here. You know, dry enough. It's all good to me. If it smears, not going to bug me at all. What I'm now going to do is take the number 16 and line it up next to it, stenciling with the same technique. That way I can create the year that I want. So I can have really any year that I absolutely want. From 2016 to 2516, I could make a journal for the future. Okay, getting a little strange there. But back to this journal. Now, these are cardboard pages that I have decorated with various techniques. You can get an idea of how to make cardboard pages like this in my free workshop called Permission to Play. For sake of time, I'm not going to put the entire workshop into one video because, well, you'd get bored sitting here waiting that long to watch it. And what I'm going to do is just stencil one of these calendars on each spread. So this is going to be a 12 spread journal because there are 12 months in the year. And I'm going to pick colors that are contrasting. So I want the calendar to pop. Now what I've got here is a fair amount of paint. This is not a super precise journal. As you can tell by the wonky edges of the cardboard, you see imperfection everywhere with this. So I'm putting a lot of paint on here. And the fact that I'm not really going in an up and down stenciling motion says basically that it's probably going to be a little bit messy. And that makes me super happy. Now I've got part of the stencil hanging off the edge, and that's because I think this is going to be January. So all I really need is the January at the top and all the numbers for the month. Now, could I have done this in spray ink instead of paint? Absolutely. I just felt like doing paint. I love how it kind of works with that grungy colors and blends over there. And then I'm going to work on the next spread. I'm going to put another one on there. And since I'm incredibly impatient and don't want to wait for paint to dry, basically I'm going to be working on a lot of the right sides of pages, because if I work on the left side, that would smush the wet paint on the other. So for the most part, I'm just going to be working on the right side. Now what you saw me do there was what I did not plan on doing, which was get more paint. The paint that I have on here, this is leftovers from another project. And really, that's where this journal has come from, is a lot of my leftover paints so that nothing gets wasted. And my goal was to use up all those paints over there, but as it seems to happen for me, I end up grabbing more paint just because I want this color or that color, and it kind of becomes this never-ending thing since I keep putting more paint on there. I think maybe it's a ploy by my muse to keep me actually playing and painting rather than going off and doing responsible grown-up things that I probably should do more of, but frankly, I just have more fun playing. So again, I'm doing the stenciling here, and notice that I'm dragging that sponge across. That is going to lead to a less precise image usually. You can see a little bit of bleeding under the days of the month. Days of the month? Names of the months. Now remember how I said just a moment ago that this was about using up the paint that's on that palette? And what do? I go and I get out a whole nother thing of paint. Don't have any white paint on my palette, so I'm just going to open up that jar and go for it. And for placement, I really seem to like that bottom right-hand corner, so rather than overthink it, I am just going to stay there and keep doing that. And I'm looking at the other side to give me an idea of what color I want to use with it. Now for this one I'm using yellow, and it's going over, well, some darker colors with that darker teal there. And for yellow paint to be seen, you've got to have a lot of yellow because yellow is a very translucent color in my experiences. So I am really loading the paint in there. And my big plan of just doing it on the right side just fell apart here because the place where I want to put the calendar is up in that white space on the left. So I'm going to have to set this one aside and come back to it after all that yellow paint is dry. Well, in my head as I was doing this, I was being very mindful of going, okay, this is going to be the spread for January so that I want to make sure that I can see the little Jan around the circle. And when I got to February, I wanted to remember that that was February. And I had this crazy notion that I was actually going to remember what month I was on for which one. Yeah, it didn't take long for me to forget what I was working on or what month or how many I'd done. And now that I've kind of moved them all around on the counter, I've got no idea. And guess what? It's not going to be a big deal. I don't really have to know because in the end, when I put this together, I'm not even going to remember the order of the pages. And that's kind of the cool part about this is because it will work for any month because they're all on there. Now, I can't believe what I'm about to do for this one. I'm going to grab a color that I almost never grab, and that is red. And I'm going to do it with the large calendar stencil here, which, by the way, these stencils are from Stencil Girl. Can't believe I went to red. I rarely ever go to red, and I'm really happy with it there. And look, there's more red. I guess it's going to be a red kind of day for me. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm using a lot of paint on my cosmetic sponges because I like to have lots and lots of paint showing up on things. I like that look, but it's creating a buildup of paint on my stencils. And I'm going to show you how I deal with that and get something done at the same time while I'm doing it. So this purple one, it's totally loaded up. I'm coming back in and filling up that one that I was waiting for it to dry, but I've got a lot of purple paint on top of that stencil at this point. And I've got a lot of red on that stencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it off and leave an impression. That's just a baby wipe, and I'm just wiping all the damp paint off, and that's giving me a really wonderful grungy look to it. And now I'm cleaning off the back side of the stencil. That way the red doesn't contaminate any other colors for me. But now let's use that contamination to our advantage. So I've got lots and lots of that darker purple color on this stencil. And I need a lighter color so it'll stand out a little bit with that green. So I'm going to grab white onto my cosmetic sponge, and I'm actually going to mix it with the purple that's on there. And what this is going to do is give me a lighter purple that'll stand out a little bit more on that green and blue background. So I'm using up the paint was on there. I'm purposely mixing and getting that contamination to create a new color for me. And there's going to be some variation on there. And that variation makes it more interesting to me because I'll have some parts that are a little more white, a little more purple, those types of things. When you lift it up, you can see that variation. And now I'm going to do what I think is the very last page in this journal. I think it's the last one because it's the last piece of cardboard on the counter. Turns out it's not really the last one. I kind of missed one. So, and I didn't find this until I put the journal together and I'm like, oh wait, 11, that doesn't mean 12 months. I can't cut a month out of the year. So I had to go back and fix that one. And here's the one that was missing. And hey, by doing this, it's almost like I gained an extra month in my year because I was planning on having 11 months apparently, and now I'm up to the whopping 12 months within a year. Well, here's what the journal looks like all finished. Well, when I say finished, what I mean is finished with this step. Because what I'm now going to do is eventually get around to binding it, and I have to admit I'm kind of slow to do that some days. How I go about binding it, that's all in my Permission to Play workshop. This video has been long enough as it is. You can check that out. It's a free workshop, and that way you can see how I bind these together. And what I'm going to do then is each month add a little bit more into this journal. So my goal is every month to make some kind of art journal spread about what happened or what's been going on in that month to chronicle it. I wish I could do something like this every single day, but I know I'm not going to stick with it. So that's why I'm going to try it for 1 month at a time. And now I've got a base for the start of each month, and then I'll build on it with whatever is striking my fancy at that time. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Want to see more of my videos? Never miss when I have a new one out? Click the subscribe button. And most of all, Thank you for being a part of this colorful journey.